Christian Parenting.
There is nothing quite like finding the perfect gift for the special people on your Christmas list. But let's be honest, it's easy to feel uninspired, especially when life gets busy as a parent. We've all been there scrambling for ideas and then experiencing chaotic trips at the mall and just coming up short. But Christian Parenting is here to help ease that stress. We have put together a Christmas gift guide that is packed with faith-based products and experiences all in one place. You can visit christianparenting.org/Christmas to get your free Christmas gift guide today. This guide is designed to help your shopping experience easier and more meaningful. Whether you're shopping for kids, parents, grandparents, or friends, we have ideas that are perfect for every age, stage, and interest. Christian Parenting also has amazing Advent resources for your family. So if you're looking for fun and creative ways to keep Jesus the center of your Christmas season, those resources are in the guide as well. From family activities to devotionals just for kids, you are guaranteed to find the perfect Advent resource that you have been looking for. You can visit christianparenting.org/Christmas to get your free Christmas gift guide today. Hello, and welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Steph Thurling, and it is Thanksgiving week. And I am so very thankful for this podcast, for all my guests, for my team I get to work with to make this happen, and for you. Thank you so much for listening to this show. It truly amazes me that I get to do this with you every week. This is a place where you can bring your real self, no matter what that looks like today, whether you are exhausted and hosting people and already cooking up a storm, or whether you are enjoying this podcast on a peaceful walk or a commute in your car, you will be given resources and encouragement for your faith and parenting journey in each episode. Every week, I get to talk to some of the best in the Christian parenting space, and today is absolutely no exception because I am joined by the one and only Bob Goff. And it is a conversation you do not want to miss. If you don't know who Bob Goff is, he is a former lawyer, a writer, a speaker, a dreamer, a husband, a dad, and a grandfather. He is known for his many books, including Love Does and Everybody Always. And his latest book is called Catching Whimsy. And that's what we're talking about today. So we talk about parenting, faith, and the importance of whimsy in family life. He emphasizes the value of living in anticipation, creating teachable moments, and balancing our everyday daily routines with adventure. We also discuss how each child is so different and the significance of genuine interest in our kids' lives, no matter what those interests are. This is a really fun conversation that will leave you feeling a little encouraged to turn ordinary moments into extraordinary memories. Hi, Bob. Welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast.
Thanks a million, Steph. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. I just think all my listeners are going to love hearing from you. And we're going to talk about your book, Catching Whimsy. It's a full year devotional. It's your newest book. But before we do that, because we are going to get into that and we're going to hear all sorts of stories and your heart and all the good stuff, but we have to hear about you first, which I think most people probably know who you are. But for those who don't, you have to tell us who you are. Tell us what you do, and then tell us about your family, because I think that's the most important part of Christian parenting.
Yeah, that's it. I would start. I think God takes all of our accomplishments and certificates of participation and doctorates and all that and just makes confetti out of it to celebrate the humble. The thing to know about me is Sweet Maria Goff said yes 38 years, 2 months, and 9 days ago. I'm counting up. I think she's counting down. That we made 3 people, and then they married 3 people, and they made 3 more people. So that makes us a pastor of a church of 12. We co-pastor that thing. We're just trying to figure out some life. The people that we get to spend time with, that One Posse is a group that kind of self-identifies as Love Does. And they are in 14 different countries doing terrific things. There's Afghans teaching in Afghanistan and folks from Burkina Faso doing that. And just back from Uganda a couple days ago, where we were with the kids, 1,500 kids at one of the schools. And we're starting a university that we're just breaking ground on it, and a giraffe sanctuary. Can you believe that?
Oh, Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so we were there to bag some giraffes. So
How many giraffes do you have?
we're hoping to get 6. So we have about a
Okay.
square mile to put them in. And the way it works out, I've learned more about giraffes than just that they have long necks. Um, but this was to meet with the president and first lady and then the members of the cabinet to say, like, all stack hands, like, we're really, really doing this. This isn't just a funny idea. Like, it's game on. And they're like, game on. So I think of how I would self-identify as the people that you are doing life with, and then some of the people that inspire you. And a lot of them, in addition to the ones that I get to work with every day, are doing stuff with Love Does.
Okay, so this is what everybody has to answer when they come on my show.
Okay, fine.
Is now you have to describe your family in one word or phrase.
Oh, I would say anticipation. The thing that comes to mind with each of them is they share that idea. They're living in constant anticipation. So they're just wondering what's right around the bend. And I think we've always had that as kind of a family high value to think what might be possible and like living in anticipation of that.
Do you feel like that's something that you and Maria nurtured from a young age, and that's kind of led your whole mission, really? I mean, it
Yeah, well, I
sounds
think it's
very similar.
it revolves around this concept. Faith is a big deal for us. And this idea in a description of faith in Hebrews 11:1, it's a confidence in what you're hoping for and assurance in what you haven't seen yet. And so being curious, just like knowing first, like, what are you hoping for? Like, what are you aiming for? What are you hanging a target on? So to know that, and I don't need to know the whole thing, but there's a direction, not always a destination, but there's a direction. Giraffes, like there's a direction, kids in education. Um, and then to say, feeling confident about things you haven't seen yet, to feel like that confidence that comes with, I think it'll work. But if it doesn't work, I think leukemia, that's a really bad day. But having one of my ideas not work, that's just Tuesday. And then there'll be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and a long weekend. So to live in anticipation and then constantly curious, that curiosity that say, I wonder what would happen if, and then you just fill in the blank.
Yeah. I feel like that just really goes along with your book too, and this idea of whimsy and just bringing spontaneous and fun and curiosity and wonder to everything that you do. And I think so, Christian Parenting Podcast, I think teaching your kids about God is very serious business. But sometimes I think we get way too bogged down in the weight of that, like the pressure, the heaviness, the weight, the seriousness of it, that we forget the fun of it too. So
Yeah.
I want to spend a little time talking about like humor and fun and faith and like how do those things help families connect to each other and to God?
Yeah, I think that a level of engagement comes from curiosity, and that's born out of just having your head on a swivel, thinking, what might be possible here? And I just think of all the mischief from the very practical things to the like mischievous ones. To say, remember a long, long time ago when 9/11 happened and then the kids wrote to all the world leaders? That would be an example. So just like there was every world leader got a letter from my kids saying, do you want to come over for a sleepover? And if you can't make it, could we come over to your house and ask you, what are you hoping for? So like that idea that just seemed absurd, but then 29 countries later, and a lot of friendships that continue today, like decades later. And it comes from this idea that it isn't just whimsy like unicorns and confetti, but underneath that is a mile of strategy to say, what do we want to do? A shared experience. Acts 2 and 4 said they broke bread together, they pounded the carbs, and they had things in common. So to have many, many of these experiences and to be really creative with your kids, finding these teachable moments, not to impart a bunch of information, because information does not have the power to change us. But that idea to say an adventure really does. I've learned a little bit about writing books. There's a concept which is collective nouns, and you're familiar with those, like a school of fish, a murder of crows, a bunch of giraffes that are on the move. It's called a journey. That's the collective noun for. And so we're just sticking our neck out and we're saying, what would happen if, and then just giving something a try and see, well, I don't know. Will that work? we're on year, I don't know what it's San Quentin, but a long, long time. And been teaching classes there and go with all of our friends up there. And I wore a Santa suit, and they never let people wearing like costumes into San Quentin. I mean, you're either dressed in blue because you're one of the guys, or you're not dressed in blue because you're not one of the guys. You can't go visit dressed in blue. And you definitely can't visit wearing a Santa suit. But the warden is a really nice guy, and he let me in. And I'm in the yard, and one of the Manson family members that's actually been in my class for years, he didn't go in anywhere. He sat on my lap, and he said, "I've never sat on Santa's lap before." And I said, "Well, I've never had a serial killer sitting in my lap before because this is new for both of us." And I asked him, "What do you want?" And he said, "I just want to call on Christmas morning." That kind of like showing up, a shared experience, a call on December 25th to an unlikely guy. And there's something beautiful and winsome about that. But it's also this concept in Matthew 25, hungry people, thirsty people, sick people, strange people, naked people, people in jail. So maybe even taking your family on that adventure to say, let's go find some hungry people. Get some In-N-Out burgers, throw them in the car, and away you go. And everybody wants one of those. And then find thirsty people and find just little bottles of water and give them. And then it's hard to like to figure out what to do for naked people, but you could find some people that are in jail to just say, instead of agreeing with Jesus, I would say as a family, if you take agreeing with Jesus off the table, the only thing that's left is to either do it or not do it. So you could agree, like love your enemies. But then if you have an enemy, then you just say, actually, I've got to decide, am I going to do it or not? And I think heaven would rather hear us say, I'm not, than just agree and make us think that we are. Does that make sense? I think if we
Yeah.
were to take the scriptures literally, and then just apply the practical version of how do you work that out on a Thursday, then that would be just a really lasting thing. We live off the grid in a place in Canada, far, far away from everybody, about 3 months out of every year. And when we leave, Maria will put a glass of water and freeze it and put a penny on it. And then we leave. And when we come back, if the glass of water is frozen and the penny's on the bottom, like what happened while we were gone, right? So it all defrosted. And so all this frozen stuff that looks terrific on the shelf, actually, it ain't terrific. And so taking a teachable moment like that to say, what happened when you were gone? Like when you checked out emotionally, when you had that job that you'd kind of outgrown and yet you hung out, but you feel like you were just separate from who you actually had become, and you're doing a job that was fine on the day you got it, but you changed and the job didn't. And so to have those kinds of questions with your family, that would be what I'd try to put in a book. That would be something on it like a devotional to talk about. Faith is confidence in what we're hoping for and assurance in what we haven't seen. And then to talk about something, we could talk about a frozen cup with a penny on the top. You could talk about a giraffe moving as a journey. Those kinds of things. In Matthew 13, it said Jesus never spoke to anybody without telling them a couple stories. And so that was the idea. I think the stories that each of us and you, Steph, are doing with your kids, that's the stuff they'll remember. The information, they won't remember that.
Yeah. Okay, I have to give you a little side note. My kids don't like In-N-Out
Oh, really?
because
Well,
they're broken.
oh yeah, that is, but you don't want to make them feel bad about that.
Well, no, I
We
don't.
just they need to just experience, and maybe find a time where you go camping, and you know how everything tastes better when you're camping.
That
That
is
might be
true.
it. Or they might be just this purist. They're just be like, that just doesn't blow our hair back.
It's just not my thing. And that's
Yeah,
okay. Just makes it
yeah.
hard because when we go to California, I'm like, I want to go to In-N-Out. And they're like, no.
Oh man, well that's why you get 2 rental cars. There's the fun
That's true.
car that goes in or out, and then there's the other one.
No fun for the other car. No
Yes.
fun for them. I think part of the problem being a parent, not part of the problem, it's not a problem. I think a challenge in being a parent is that the idea of going on adventures and having really great conversations from those adventures and catching whimsy and all of those really fun, amazing sounding things gets hard because we're all in this routine. Like the kids have to go to school. they have to eat every day. It's not always in and out, like they have to do their homework. And you kind of get in certain stages of life, like when they're younger, you have to get to nap time, so we get stuck in routine. So how did you guys, when your kids have been growing up, make sure that you were incorporating all these things while also, the reality of life is there too?
Yeah. So among the things we would try to do is everybody has to share a meal at some point. So we'd have good manners night and bad manners night. So we would practice good manners, like pulling out chairs, serve on the right, pick up on the left, all of that, how the forks and knives and spoons are arranged. But then we would have bad manners night, and we'd have all this junk food and spam and Cocoa Puffs and all that. But to make it fun and to actually have a plan. So you can have a hope, like you want your kids to grow up having a magical, wonderful childhood filled with faith and wonder and exceptional experiences and quality people. So you have a hope, but without a plan, it's a wish. And I just don't want to be wishing good things on my family because faith guides my steps. I want to say, I'm actually going to have a plan to do that. And so for each kid, for instance, the 10-year-old adventure. So when they 10, they get to spin the globe, or we could go down the street and do something. We could grow pickles if they want. But that idea to have some stuff that we're looking forward to, and that's going to take a little bit of curiosity as a parent. But I think it's really worth it. Hope without a plan is a wish. And so my plan is, and then you're just going to just borrow from other people's plans. What seems to be working? You could have live off the land night. And to say, so for this whole week, we're going to live off the land. So we got to grow it. And we're going to give you like 4 weeks notice. We're going to plant it, and then we're going to raise it. Then we're going to eat it. And if we don't, we're going to go like a lot of people do without. So live off the land. We're going to find a place to catch a perch, or we're going to find a place to get a trout or pluck a chicken or whatever it is. But to say, let them know. And when they grow up, they're going to go to college. And somebody's going to say, what was it like growing up in your family? And I want them to just roll their eyes and say, how much time do you have? And so there was all the mundane, there was all the practical and rides of soccer and all that. But along the way, what we did when we were in a ride to soccer, we would always do this game. And that is such a gift for your grandkids, because your kids are going to be doing this because that's the creativity. So I would just say, you can't keep this feverish, like everything is an adventure. There's some stuff is just Tuesday. But I think sometimes we might settle in to just normal and reasonable. And I want to say, could we put a little hot sauce on that and see what happens? Just
A little
bake a
hot
cake.
sauce.
Yeah, bake a cake for somebody on the block. That idea of love your neighbor. And to say like, well, what if we're surrounded by neighbors, and if they don't want their cake, send it to me. I want it. So there's something beautiful about that. I'm thinking for no particular reason about Katie Davis. And she had all these kids in Uganda. And Tuesdays were the days that she made cupcakes in Jinja, Uganda. So I would make sure I was in Jinja on Tuesdays. So just that practice, I bet her kids will grow up. And on Tuesdays, it will feel like for no particular reason, but they were raised that way. That's how they roll.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, since you and Sweet Maria have different personalities, different, Enneagram numbers, whatever it is that you want to say, different temperaments. What did all this look like teaching your kids about God, developing family memories, all those things? What did that look like for each of you as you raised your kids?
Yeah, for each of them, not surprisingly, it was a little bit different because as the kids are different, their exposure would be different and their interests. But we just try to go wherever the ball is, like just wherever the ball is, that's where we're going to huddle up. Adam, he just needs adventure. Like you could go do 10 adventurous things before noon. And at 1 o'clock, he'd say, so what do you want to do? I'd be like, buddy, we went like hang gliding and we did this and we jumped out of an airplane and then he's like, but he's bored. He just needs activity. Lindsay is different. She's like Mary Poppins with grenades. She's just kind and fearless. And so that time for her, just that one-on-one, like hanging out time, Richard is just uber creative. He's just like such a creative guy. But the idea of he's just doing home projects. So show up with a roller in your hand and just say, like, what are we going to paint? Um, Instead of waiting for permission or waiting to be invited, what if you just grab your knees and do a cannonball? It's a best I know. And there's a non-creepy version of that as your kids grow up. Like you're not like stalkers, like but you get a sense of their rhythm. I'm thinking one set of our kids, the best time for me to connect with them is to show up with a bunch of Subway sandwiches and just say, like, I'm here. They got to stop and eat anyway. And for somebody else, just to respect, they need some space. So I think we're just dialing it in. The crazy part about this idea of being new creations, as the scripture calls it, is that we're constantly changing. So right when you think you've picked the lock, the combination changes. So we're going to spend our time developing a lock picker's touch. I think that might be one of the first Devos, somewhere in the first chunk of Devos, just that idea of developing a lockpicker's touch. And I deal with a lot of guys at San Quentin, and they have unfortunately developed a lockpicker's touch. But what if you unlock some really beautiful, lasting, enduring things? What if we find a way to describe? I have many creative friends. Yeah, I'm thinking this one city in particular, they seem to be congregated. But if you take away what you're known for, whatever's left is who you are. So bat that around the dining room table. Take away what you're known for. So I was known as a trial lawyer in a previous life. I was like the serious trial. I was still fun, but I was like pretty like doing big trials. And then take that away. And then I wrote a couple books. And so now take away Bob the lawyer. Now take away Bob the author. And then, so what's left? Who am I? And then take away whatever Love Does. If people are aware of the organization, take away Love Does. And to just keep stripping it down. Ask that of your kids. Say, what are you known for? If you're really good at soccer, say, okay, take away soccer. There's no shame in it. You just can't do it anymore. What would be left? What would you be known for? Those kind of conversations are the ones that beget other really great conversations, and those launch really inquisitive children into the world. Philippians 2:20, it's Paul talking about Timothy. He said, there's nobody like Timothy. He's a guy who takes a genuine interest in other people. And so launching children out who want to take a genuine interest in other people, they're begotten by parents who take a genuine interest in them. If Adam wanted to make pizzas, I would grow tomatoes.
Christmas can be so busy as parents. We want to make sure that the season is meaningful, beautiful, special, and fun, and so we bake cookies, we pick out the perfect gifts, we wrap presents, and we decorate the house. And between the busyness and preparation, it can be so easy to overlook the most important part of Christmas, which is celebrating the birth of our Savior. But we know that since you're listening to this podcast, that prioritizing faith in your family is important to you. And over the years, Christian Parenting has made so many amazing products for families to utilize during the Advent season. Each product was carefully created to help you and your family focus on Jesus and prepare your hearts and minds for the Christmas season. So if your kids love to color and draw or do word searches and you want to teach them more about the incredible birth of our Savior, we have the perfect resources for them. Or are you looking for a way to slow down this Christmas and spend time with the Lord? We have devotionals written just for parents like you. And if your family is looking for fun and engaging ways to actively explore the meaning of Christmas together, we have a great Advent experience just for you too. And best of all, many of these resources are bundled together so you can deepen your relationship with Jesus right alongside your kids. Make sure you head over to cpgive.org to check out all the wonderful Advent resources available. And don't forget to order soon because Christmas definitely sneaks up on us. Again, get your family Advent resources at cpgive.org. We just had a conversation with one of my kids because he is a that's his thing. Math is his thing. It's his favorite subject. He's very good at it. He does National Math Olympics. That's what he's known for.
Yeah.
But this year, he's feeling very frustrated because he's getting more wrong on his math problems than he ever has before. He just came home so upset. And we had that conversation of what if math wasn't your identity? Like who else are you? And when we kind of stripped away everything, we're like, every identity is going to fail you except for your identity as child of God. And he was like, well, I still want to be good at math. I'm like, well,
Right.
that's okay. But we have to lean, like those are all temporary things and you can change and you can be good at math, but you are so much more than just that. But it was a really
Yeah.
good conversation.
Or your perspective to say, how many did you get right? Because
Yes.
the kids will say, how many you got wrong?
Right.
I immediately thought, so we could do like this reverse economy that Jesus had. He was constantly flipping it. Say, how many got right? Or if there was a big failure, like we would go to Disneyland and celebrate, like, oh, that was an epic fail. Instead of having a big reward, and then you don't want to have love be given and withdrawn. So if your
Mm-hmm.
kids do the things that you ask them to do, that you're very loving and affectionate and lots of praise and all that. And if they do what you don't want them to do or what you disapprove of, do you withdraw your love? Do you hold back? To see you want it, it's not being malicious. You're just trying to not give affirmation to those things that you thought. But that turns love into a weapon, and that makes love
Mm-hmm.
not trustworthy. It can be given, it can be taken just as quickly. And so finding that thing is co-parenting if you're in a non-traditional relationship or a very traditional relationship of parenting. Like, how do you navigate that so we're not giving and withdrawing love, so we don't give our children the skewed version of love where it's given and withdrawn to control our behavior, which is just another way of saying manipulation.
Right. And in parenting, it's so tempting to go that way because it's easier in the short-term moment.
Right. Because you want to make
Yeah.
a teachable moment out of it, like never do this or always do that. I remember Lindsay calling in tears and she said, someone has stolen my car. I was like, are you kidding? Let's go get another one. What color do you want to get? And it was so, I think, absurd. What did I think immediately as the dad? She probably parked in a red zone. It got towed away and it's some impound lot. The chance of somebody would want to steal her thrashed car were pretty low, and the chances that she parked somewhere where she got towed away seemed high at the moment. So instead of making it a big teachable moment, like always, never, all that, but to just do the absurd, and then when we found it out, to celebrate, be like, you got towed away. How cool is that? It's kind of expensive, but like that whole idea to give the unlikely, not the predictable response, because I don't want to raise predictable children. I want to raise faithful children. I want to raise children that feel loved, independent
Mm-hmm.
of the activities around them. I want to teach them good habits, and that's going to happen. There's no getting around that. But it's that extra little ounce of creativity, I would say the whimsy, that distinguishes what is a normal life from an extraordinary one. And then that'll play out with our grandkids. I'm already seeing extraordinary grandkids that have different worldviews than I would imagine. I got to tell you this one seemed like a little precocious. I don't know, 2 or 3 years old, but there was an apple and some other fruit in the bowl. And this grandchild of ours like looked at the bowl of fruit and said, apple. And I was like puffed up. I'm like, smartest kid ever. And then a squirrel ran across the lawn and she pointed out the window and she said, apple. Then she pointed to me and said, apple. I'm like, okay, I get it. And I think in Zechariah 4:10, it says, don't despise small beginnings because the
Mm-hmm.
Lord delights in watching the work begin. And I would say for parenting, I would say not to despise small beginnings, that the Lord delights in watching the work begin. And so show up, mess it up, not on purpose. It's just going to happen all by itself. And then say, I'm amateur. This is amateur night. And nobody goes all pro in parenting. There's no like leather suits like these NASCAR racers have with sponsored by Hershey's Kisses and good parenting and focus on the family. It's just say, this is amateur night. I'm going to do the best I can. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring all the game I've got. And I'm not going to settle for just a normal dinner when we could have good manners night and followed by bad manners night.
Okay, so I want to know, I'm curious. Did your kids, especially in like the teenage years, when you did things like good manners night, bad manners night, or like, yay, you got towed, did you ever get eye rolls?
Yes. Yeah. Like all the time. There'd be like, that's so lame. Like at your age, I'm like, I am. So I think that idea is that I want to push through that part and tolerate that because I'm not looking for approval. I'm looking for introducing a little bit of wonder. And
Mm.
so that idea, whatever will get us there. When our boys were old enough, we bought 3 Harleys. And I think one was just getting out of high school and one was in their senior year or something. And we bought 3 Harleys and we started in Mexico and we drove them to Canada. And we'd never driven motorcycles on the highway before. So like there's that kind of like big grand adventure. And then there's just what are you going to do in your backyard today? Like what is it that you can plant? You can get Metzger Farms will hook you up with a dozen baby ducks for like $20. They'll ship them to you. They will be on your porch tomorrow. And then just raise ducks. And it's kind of neat because they go through adolescence in like a week and then they fly away. But we decided to start raising ducks. We're down by the water in San Diego, and we just populated the entire bay with ducks. We were just a dozen at a time. And there was that fun whimsy factor, but it was also beautiful, like the duck's imprint. And then when the kids would walk down by the sand, the ducks would waddle behind them. And when they'd come back home, the ducks would get in a line and walk up. These are the kind of memories that I think we are just one creative move away from starting with our kids and then to have a conversation about it. And you don't need to have a Bible verse every time. But what if you said, like, this is us, this is a picture of who we are, that we stick together, that there's this imprint that we have. We have shared experiences, and no matter what you do or where you are, I am still going to be following along behind you. There's something beautiful about that. Do those activities. It can take a little bit of creativity, but I'll tell you, you're doing it for your grandkids because your kids are going to grow up and do it for their kids. And you're going to get the big benefit saying, like, I remember when we started doing that.
Yeah. Are you seeing that now?
Totally. Yeah. At 35, 33, 31, we're seeing in the kids some of these really neat things. The problem with showing the kids the whole world is that some of them are planning to move to the other side of the world. Like, darn it. I should have never shown them Bakersfield. So, but
Yeah.
what they're
Keep
doing
them
is
right where you are.
I know exactly, just duct tape them in the corner. But what you do is you create these people that have a big, beautiful world view and experience. You expose them to people that of different faith traditions. And it's not like you're afraid of like, what's going to happen if they see, somebody with a different faith background. Be like, no, no, no. Like there's a lot of people that believe a lot of different things.
Yeah.
The reason that I believe what I do is, and then to ask them, you don't tell them what they believe. That
Right.
our kids will have kind of a borrowed faith. They'll have a borrowed culture. Like, so I'm a pretty enthusiastic guy. And so the culture, without saying it, around our house was a high level of enthusiasm. But then the kids grow up and to get to decide what is our independent, like owned culture? What's the way that we want to roll? And because Lindsay was married or was raised by me, like Tigger, she married this brilliant guy who's a lot more organized than me. And so that beautifully, like we've just embraced that. We go, that is such a great decision. So just as we're making our way forward, humbly, knowing what we're hoping for, having a plan, so it isn't just a wish, and then just trusting God in the whole thing to just say, you know more about how this is going to shake out than me. I don't know what I'm going to do for lunch today, but you've got the whole thing in mind. And even in the times where I'm feeling a little bit shaky on that, I'm just going to get real about it. I love Mark 9. It's a father, it's a parent saying, I believe, just help me with the parts that I don't believe right now. I would love for Christian parents to get real about what do they believe and why, and what is it that they don't quite believe yet, and why. Because I think that just lights up heaven to say, oh, wow, here's an authentic person with real life questions.
Yeah. Okay. I love this devotional. It's 366 days,
It
right?
is. I had to get leap
366.
year in there.
Yeah. So it's 366 different devotionals. Um, Tell us a little bit about the structure of that. And then I have one more question to wrap us up.
Yeah. I usually write books for somebody I would describe as church adjacent. So they're not the one in row one of the church, and they're not the ones that are saying snarky, mean things about the church. It's the guy at the tire store. He's church adjacent. He's like, all that crazy, you can keep it. But the thing about faith actually sounds kind of intriguing. And so the books I write don't have Bible verses in it. And yet, faith stuff and scripture mean a lot to me. And so every
Mhm.
once in a while, every 5 or 10 years, I'll write a devotional. And so I just took 366 stories and scriptures that kind of seem like they go with that story. So people would just have a quick little high five in the morning, say, let's go do this thing. People want to be shown, not told. And so there's something beautiful. And I think that's why Jesus told stories. Because what we do is we take our lived experience and overlap that onto whatever story's being told. And you won't be thinking about my baseball coach. You'll be thinking about your baseball coach. You won't be thinking about the person that was kind to me. You'll be thinking about a person that was kind to you. And then the hope would be that we would not just agree with Jesus, but actually go do some of this. So with each of these, there's kind of a, hey, what do you think about doing this today? Would this be crazy? To actually go find somebody who's hungry and just get them a burger. It'll cost you
Get them in and out.
$3. But yeah, totally. Give them in and out, even if they don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just so much good wisdom in it. There are things like make less assumptions about people, talk less, remember you represent Christ. Like there's just good stuff in there.
Yes. Or change
Yeah.
the assumptions if you're a parent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moms and dads that are in the marketplace that are trying to provide for their families, but they're doing the kinds of things that aren't providing what the family really needs, which is them. And
Mm.
so I'm all for being in the marketplace and doing noble work. And to be aware that what the kids want, they just want you to take an interest in them. Just get
Yeah.
down on the floor and put the jigsaw puzzle together. I know you might not be into it. I'm not into it either, but like, hand me another piece. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's time together. So, yeah. And then flip the jigsaw puzzle over where there's no indication about you just have a bunch of shapes, and then talk about that. Like if you were going to put a jigsaw puzzle together, I would start with the 4 corners, right? Those would be easy to figure out. And then the next thing I do, I'd find the things that connect the corners. So you could think of the 4 most important things. What would those be in your life? Ask your kid and then say, what is the thing that just kind of connects those together? And then one kid would say, adventure, definitely. And then what do you do about all the stuff? You don't start with the blue sky. You start with the pieces that you recognize, a fence, a tree, something. So just using those conversations, that's a great way to raise your kids.
Yeah. I love that. Very practical example too. So thank you. Okay. So, and this will just go right along with what you've been saying, but I always like to end, and I would love to know, what is one thing that you want every parent to know?
Oh, you know what? I'd my Jedi move, if I could do that, is to let parents know you're enough. So
Mm.
sometimes we walk away feeling like we're not this enough, or we're not that enough, we're not creating the opportunities, or we don't have the resources, or whatever. You're enough. And I learned that from my grandparents. They raised me in a castle. Can you imagine that?
Mm.
Now, to anybody else, it was just a row home in San Diego or San Jose, California, but they told me it was a castle. And to prove it, they painted it hot pink with white trim. It was the only hot pink house, I guarantee you, in San Jose, in just the subdivision, and property values cratered for blocks in every direction. But they had me convinced that I lived in a castle because they lived in a castle, and they said they were so wealthy, although they were living on Social Security, $400 a month. But they were so wealthy, they didn't have to even make their own food. Apparently, there was a guy that made their food in metal aluminum trays called Swanson. And he would make the food, and they would just peel back the metal and put a little brown on the apple cobbler. And
Mhm.
I thought, What a cool deal. They live in a castle. They have a guy named Swanson that makes all their food for them. And they paid me room rent. Every time they went into my room at their house in the castle, they would put a nickel in a drawer because they say, this is your room. And if we go into your room, we should pay you room rent. And so I'd run into my room in the castle and I'd open up the drawer and there'd be all these nickels. And I felt so loved. Now, my grandparents passed away. They had more sodium in them than Lot's wife. But what they left me with is that idea of whimsy and wonder, like that idea that you could talk to your kids and let them know they live in a castle. That the things about faith you could talk about is just really remarkable rules in your castle. And that we don't have drawbridges there to keep people out. We have bridges to let people in. And like those kinds of things, that's the whimsy and wonder that I would say is the one thing I want to instill in my kids so they can instill in their kids.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Steph. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you found this episode to be refreshing and fun to listen to. Bob is just the best storyteller, and I appreciate his insights into parenting from a place of curiosity, adventure, and whimsy. I do have links to find everything he mentioned in show notes. I recommend you go check out his book. I think that you'll really love it. But thank you for joining us, and please come back next week as we talk to another amazing guest. And if you are looking for more parenting resources in the meantime, check out christianparenting.org, or you can find us on social media. We're at christianparenting_org. Thank you again for joining me. May God bless you this week. May you be filled with the wonder of God. He designed this beautiful world around us, and he delights in his masterpiece. May you be given extra time, space, and energy this week to marvel at the wonders of his love and creation with your family. Thank you so much for listening to the Christian Parenting Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you love this podcast, would you please consider leaving a review and sharing it with a friend? This is the best way to reach more people and encourage even more parents. Christian Parenting is a donor-funded ministry, and we rely on friends like you to keep podcasts like this going. So to find out more about Christian Parenting and to make a donation, head over to christianparenting.org or at christianparenting_org on Instagram. Thank you again. See you next week.